All right. You know what it is? You know who it is? We're back. Another episode of the Fightcast. My first one from Nashville, Tennessee. And got a couple good fights that happened this weekend. We're going to be going over Rafael Dos Anjos versus Paul Felder. We got Terrance Crawford versus Kell Brook. And then Kaity Taylor versus Gutierrez. I don't know her first name. But as we know, Kaity Taylor was a beast. And I was telling you, I didn't finish it, but they said that they were making fun of it because they said that no one cares about women's boxing. But Kaity Taylor had almost like 2 million views or something like that when she was fighting. So, I mean, she's got to be doing something right to care. Want to start with boxing or want to start with UFC?
Let's get the UFC out of the way because I think I'm going to spend a minute talking about the two fights.
Yeah, so this weekend, Rafael Dos Anjos and Paul Felder fought. Now, this was supposed to be Dos Anjos versus Makaev. He was like a Khabib, or he is a Khabib apprentice, and he probably would have won this fight. But Dos Anjos and Felder took this fight on 5 days' notice, first off. So just to get that out there, he took this on 5 days ago. He had a 2 or 3 day camp, and he dropped 22 pounds in 4 days. And he didn't look good coming on the scale. He didn't look good at all. But he looked fucking good in the actual fight. Like, he looked fast. They said they kept repeating it. That it was one of those things where, like, if you played a drinking game, you would have been drunk. They kept saying, he trained for a triathlon. He's training for a triathlon. But he was in like really good shape, like conditioning wise. And he was fast. He was, he just was not in fighting shape, essentially. Like, I think that it was just like a fatigue thing. And like, he was sharp, but he wasn't like, he wasn't 5-round Rafael Dos Anjos level sharp where you need to be to fight a guy like that. But Dos Anjos, like, he looks good, but there was he was very much using grappling. He was he was in his face. He was trying to get him on the floor. He got him down a bunch of times and got him down on the ground. And Felder's not like a bad wrestler. Just Dos Anjos is just better. And I'll tell you why that's so significant after, because I found something out after the fight. But yeah, I mean, it was a really good fight. Dos Anjos, it was another weird judging scorecard, which Dos Anjos clearly won the fight, but Felder had a good performance. And I don't know, one judge scored it like 50-47 Felder, which is just like absolute nonsense because he definitely didn't win the fight. I could see it being within like a point or two. But then the other two were for Dos Anjos in like the complete opposite direction. It was like 50-47 and then 50 or 49-48. I forgot the other one. But anyways, it was Dos Anjos won on split decision, but I don't know what that guy was looking at for Felder. He had a good fight, but he wasn't, definitely was one of those things where it's just like you don't really know what he was looking at.
Right.
But so Felder, again, going back, 5 days notice, 22 pounds in 5 days he lost. Had like a 3-day camp, and he put up a really good fight against Dos Anjos. And like I think he put himself back into the conversation for being there. And he was talking after the interview, and he said he hadn't rolled or done any like sparring stuff in 4 months. So he was in the 5 days, got ready, lost 22 pounds, fought a former world champion and a guy who came back down to the welterweight division of 150, I think, welterweight division of 155. And Dos Anjos was fighting in 170 for a little bit, and he was getting his fucking ass whooped because he's not that big. And he's coming back down to like his quote unquote, his comfortable division at 155. And he still put up a fight and had someone think he won the fight. So just, I'd love to see that fight again without, the 5 days notice and him ready. Because I really think Paul Felder could have put up a better shot there.
So what you're saying is that the performance that he put out there, that great performance, was just basically Irish DNA.
Basically, it's just the fight in Irish.
That's all it was.
Essentially, yeah. I don't know what else it was, but like it's 5 days notice. I mean, he's a good fighter, but like he's not like, and then 3 days later, was it Saturday? So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday night, he was back on Dana White's Contender Series calling the fights on Tuesday night. So then he was like fucked up, but like that's just a warrior. Like he was just going through it. But it was a really good fight. You know, they had their moments each, and you know, it was never ever. It was more of like a even fight, or it was in Dos Anjos' favor the entire fight. But like I said, you know, you have to take into account the 5 days. You know, when he said he hadn't grappled in 4 months, you know, like that's like in a UFC fight going against primarily a wrestler. Like, you know, Dos Anjos is you know, primarily like a jiu-jitsu guy. So like going against that, like that's a main aspect of it. And then you get pushed into that. That's just like, I remember the first time I rolled when I took like 2 weeks off, and then like I went back and I was dead tired. Like I just didn't have it. So like having that after 4 months is just completely different. So yeah, it was impressive. It was really impressive. And like, it was one of those things where you see it and you're just like, he has a chance against bigger guys if he's ready for it. It was impressive no matter what, just looking at it. So we both said Felder just for the luck of the Irish, but honestly, if you give him a handicap there for all the things that he had to deal with getting up to that, you probably would have won on points. But it was a good fight overall. This weekend we got Davison Figueiredo versus Alex Perez. Figueiredo is a heavy favorite here. He's minus 300. He's basically the top dog in that division right now, and he's going to be looking to. I think he is the champion, or he's going for the championship. Hold on, let's see. I think he's the number one contender. I can find that out later. But, you know, this should be one of those fights where he's going to dominate, and he's probably going to win handily. And then I think he's going to be like next in line to do that. Or I think, I'm not 100% sure. I probably should have looked into that before, but I'm going to go with Figueiredo there. I think it's going to be a good fight, but I think he's going to win. And then after that, there's Valentina Shevchenko versus Jennifer Maia. That's going to be a really good fight. Shevchenko is basically like the number one women's fighter besides Amanda Nunes right now, and she's a fucking badass, and she's just like all around good fighter. She's a good puncher. She's a good grappler. I feel like the girls now are just becoming like absolute, just like savages. Like they're just becoming so good, and they're just, you know, she's, like I said, she's at the top of her game right now. She's at the top of the class. So I you know, Jennifer Maia had a good performance last time out when she won, and that got her this championship opportunity. And she's an overall good fighter, but I just think Shevchenko, I mean, the odds on that, just to give you guys an idea, Shevchenko's minus 1375. So that's a huge number to be favored by. And Maya's plus 900. So other than that, so Davison Figueiredo, I think, is going to win on Saturday. Shevchenko will probably win handily, probably like a knockout. And then last one is Mike Perry. I know Jake.
Mike Perry.
The funny thing about this fight was he was for a while. Do you know Darren Till?
Mm-hmm.
So
yep,
him and Darren Till were going at it because Mike Perry was auctioning off his corner. Like he was going to auction off whoever paid the most for his corner, and he was going to let them corner him or be in his corner for the fight. I don't know why he was doing this. I think it was just like a power.
He's a fucking douche.
Yeah. And they were going back and forth on Twitter, and Darren Till was saying he was going to pay for it and just throw in the white towel for him.
Good.
Then some porn star got involved. I don't know how. I saw something about she like Mike Perry tagged some porn star or Darren Till. I forgot exactly who it was, but kind of hope Mike Perry loses. But he's fighting Tim Means. I don't see him as being a big threat to him. But I mean, it's pretty close actually. Mike Perry is 150. Tim Means is plus 130. So it's a pretty close fight there. But Mike Perry probably wins. Unless his cockiness and his ring antics get to him. But yeah, so that's basically it for UFC. Getting to this boxing stuff. We had Terrance Crawford versus Kell Brook. we had Kaity Taylor versus Gutierrez. Then we got a fight coming up, but let you take over the floor here and talk.
All right. So I am just blown away. Like I'm kind of obsessed with Kaity Taylor. So I'm gonna talk about the Crawford fight first. Crawford is just. We talked about this last week, and I think the week before about Canelo Alvarez, like being in a position where he's so much better than the guys in his weight class. He doesn't really have anyone to fight. Mm-hmm. Crawford is in a very similar position. Like there are guys in the welterweight division, but we don't know how badly they want a Crawford fight because Crawford is just an animal. Like he's the nicest guy in the world outside the ring, but he's an absolute killer in the ring. An absolute killer, dude. He's one of these guys that's got everything. Like for a guy his size, has great reach, but he's got the speed, the footwork, the head movement, the power, and the IQ and experience. Like he's just above and beyond pretty much everyone he's going to be able to get in the ring with. So I don't know if you saw it, he knocked Kell Brook across the ring with like a half a jab. It was kind of unbelievable.
I was driving Saturday, so I was unable to watch it, but.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. So Kell Brook was, the reason that it happened like this, because Brook was leaning into a punch. So his weight was coming forward and Crawford was coming over the top of Brook's jab. So Crawford was in a southpaw stance. That's one of the other great things about Crawford is that he switches up stances a lot and can fight equally well.
I think you kind of have to now. It's like one of those things that's like
yeah. A lot of people, you should only do it if you're comfortable.
Yeah, right? Well, I mean, like if you, I'm saying like it's going to be like a skill to have. Like you can throw on both sides. Like I think it's
like obviously it is a tremendous advantage if you can, and Terrance Crawford can, and he was out of the southpaw stance. And Brook is orthodox. So Brook was leaning in to a shot, his weight coming forward. And Crawford came over the top of Brook's jab with his own jab and like caught him halfway through his jab while Brook was leaning in. And it just rocked the shit out of Brook. Brook literally stumbled all the way across the ring into the ropes. Crawford jumped on him. It was a standing 8 count, and then they came back in, and Crawford just finished him off with some heavy shots. It was so bad that after when Brook finally got back to his corner after the fight had been called, you could see Brook ask his corner what happened.
Yeah.
He's like, what? He didn't even know. He got just rocked so bad. He was like, what the fuck happened? So yeah, Crawford just, it was not even a matter of him outclassing him, which I thought would be what happened, that he would just outclass him for 12 rounds. Cause I thought, Kell Brook's a tough dude. He's shown his toughness. He's a tough guy, but
I think we've talked about that. He's not a bad fighter at all by any means.
No, yeah, and he's shown toughness. Like he stood there and ate a lot of Triple G's punches and was still standing. So for him to get rocked like that off of that jab, it was kind of shocking to me. And it just speaks to the power of Terrance Crawford at that weight. He's just an animal.
I actually just found it. I was looking at it right now. I was looking explained it.
He's an animal. Errol Spence is probably the best fight for him. Like Danny Garcia was, I guess, talking about Crawford would eat Danny Garcia alive. Like Danny Garcia is a really good fighter, but he's no match for Crawford. No one's really a match for Crawford, and that's kind of a problem for Crawford.
Yeah.
I guess Bob Arum came out a few days ago and had some words about Crawford not being like a box office draw. Like his fights don't make that much money.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you want Crawford to do. Like, do you want him to be worse so that guys actually want to fight him?
Yeah.
just to get money at the game. I don't know what he's supposed. He's just that much better than everyone that it's kind of boring. Yeah. Like I don't know what do you want him to do?
Dana White called out Bob Arum. He told him.
Yeah, well, Dana White, his beef with Bob Arum is kind of stupid because he calls out Bob Arum for not making certain fights, but Bob Arum's fighters, all of them are set for life. Whereas Dana White's fighters, after they get beat the fuck up for 10 years in the octagon, have to get a real job after they retire because Dana White doesn't fucking pay him anything. Yeah. So I think their beef is fucking stupid. I have a problem with Dana White anyway. For again, like his whole career started, because he couldn't cut it in boxing. Yeah. And so he's like this vendetta against boxing in general. And it's like, dude, go fuck yourself. This is what happens when a guy, like, I have some power now. I'm worth like Dana White's worth, over like $1 billion or something. His fighters, most of them can't fucking pay their bills. Yeah. So fuck him. Yeah. It's like, Bob Arum like won't make some fights sometimes if it doesn't make sense, but all of his fighters are set. Their families are set for life. Yeah. Like they don't have to do anything after they're done fighting. So I see his beef, like, oh, you don't make these fights. It kind of sucks for the fans. But I mean, honestly, fuck the fans. Like, what do they know anyway? You know what I mean? But so I guess, Bob Arum came out and said that Terrance Crawford's fights don't make a lot of money. And it's kind of a shitty thing to hear because, okay, maybe that is the reality and boxing is a business. And I don't know if it makes Crawford look bad. I mean, maybe on the surface it does, but it's terrible because he's one of the best fighters. Again, on ESPN's list, he's the #1 pound for pound fighter in the world. Yeah. And it's like, what else can he do? He's just that much better than everyone else. What do you want him to do? Right? There's not a lot he can do, like other than like go in and not be that good. So a guy like Errol Spence will come up like, oh, it looked like shit. Let me go fight him now. Because I don't think Errol Spence wants that fight right now. I think Errol Spence wants to keep his undefeated record intact for a while.
Fighting guys like Danny Garcia, big names that haven't done much in a while.
Yeah, and again, Danny Garcia is a fine fighter. I think he's a couple levels below, like even like Errol Spence. Errol Spence is like up there. He's a really, really great fighter. I think it would be a really good fight, him and Crawford. Although I think Crawford would win that fight, but I think it'd be a really great fight, and it just sucks that for whatever reason, it's not happening. But anyway, like again, like Crawford's he seems like the nicest dude ever. He's an animal in the ring, and he's like in this position where it's like, I'm so much better than everyone else. Like no one wants to fight me, or people don't want to pay for fights because it's just like, ho hum, Crawford's gonna beat the shit out of another guy. Like it just sucks that his greatness has put him in a position financially that is, questionable. I guess like that sucks. Yeah. Because what the fuck is he supposed to do? Yeah. You know what I mean? His job is to beat the shit out of guys. He just does it so well that it's hurting him financially, I guess. I don't know. That sucks. Like that whole side of it, the business side of it is something that I don't understand that much. And sometimes it bothers me that it gets.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to those guys, like you said, though, like there's only so much you can do for a guy like that because he is so good. You can't force anybody to fight him. You can't force anybody to want to take that fight or put their career on the line. Like, it's just you have to figure out if it makes sense for them and then figure out financially. And like, on top of that, like, being someone like Terrance Crawford, like I really think, and I said this a couple weeks ago, boxing's having the same fucking problem as baseball, is that they have stars and no one knows who the fuck they are.
Yeah.
Mike Trout could walk down the street in fucking California and 90% of the people would not care, And like same thing, Terrance Crawford could walk down the street, nobody would care. Canelo is really like Canelo, I'm trying to think, but like, there's like only a few and there's only a few boxers that I personally think would, if you walk down the street, everyone would be like, oh, wow, like, look who it is. Like, these guys are walking down the street and everyone's going to be like, oh, he's a fighter. Oh, cool. And like in boxing, they know who they are. Like the people who watch it, they know who Terrance Crawford is. They know how good he is. They know like the problems, but like when they don't tell the stories well, unless you're Floyd, they don't tell the stories well, unless you're Pacquiao. Like and they don't do enough to engage people to want to watch these guys. So like,
Well, you got it. What happened? Because what needs to happen is that, so the one star that gets a fight, right? And they do the HBO used to do the 24/7.
yeah, I
Now
love
Showtime and ESPN got their own thing now. So the Showtime's got the All Access, and then I forget what the ESPN one is called. That Top Rank does, but that's how you get those stories out there. Like what happens is these guys end up they have to fight one of the top guys to get on one of those shows. Then we learn about the guys a little bit more. But I was talking with someone earlier today about this, as a matter of fact, that in boxing, what happens is fans usually they're going to go watch one guy.
Mhm.
Right? They want to watch like whoever he's fighting. They're going to watch this one guy. And if every now and then you happen to get another guy like that, who a group of people are going to watch that guy no matter what, it's like, okay, now we have this star-studded event. But that's how boxing is. People, like, you have one guy that people are going to watch his fights, they're going to pay for his fights no matter what.
Yep.
And so for promoters, it's like, okay, if we're going to, this one name is going to continue to drive up this revenue in, we don't really necessarily need this other big name at this moment. Like, we could build it up and make it this mega event. And really, I mean, if you want to blame someone, it's Floyd Mayweather's fault, right? Like, he's the one who built it this way. But again, like, he's worth almost $1 billion, and can you knock the guy?
Yeah.
But yeah, so it sucks in that aspect. Like, we've talked about this before. I think there is a middle ground where you can still get these big fights and still have them be big money fights.
Yeah.
Because people are going to watch fighting no matter what. They always will.
Yeah.
You want to watch fighting. So yeah, I think that's as long as fighters need to be compensated.
Yeah.
Because this shit is not a fucking game.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like, you see, basketball players again out there getting paid all this fucking money, and come on. I mean, it's basketball.
Yeah.
And these guys fighters go in there and they're risking their lives. Like, they need to be fucking paid.
Yeah. The only argument is that, like, it's, because that can go into the same conversation as, like, the WNBA is, like, they talk about getting paid, but it's like, how much money are you bringing in versus how much, because basketball players are, kind of underpaid, really. Like, I would say about.
So I totally agree with that. Like, the money that the NBA generates, like, of course they deserve to get paid that. But that's my point, is that, like, if going back to the argument was, like, the UFC underpaying fighters, like, the UFC generates a lot of money. Fighters deserve to get paid more.
Yeah.
I mean, and boxers, it's like, if one guy is generating this amount of money, no matter who he's fighting, he deserves that money that he's getting, whether or not he's fighting another big name. You're saying that they deserve it, like, more so than any other athlete, because they're at a higher risk.
I've always been amazed at, like, the money that boxers make, and, like, when you're coming up and you're watching, because realistically, you're watching the top guys. You're watching, around 5, unless you're, like, an avid fan. You're watching, the top 5 to 10 guys who are fighting, who are usually taking home around $1 million, like $500,000, like, like you see, and then, like, again, like you said, it's Floyd's fault. You don't see guys taking home $300 million in one night. Like, that's not realistic. Yeah. That's one in a million. And like, you see that, and they're like, oh, why isn't this guy making it? Or why, like, it's just not the norm. And, like, I'm sure you would know this better than me, but I'm sure that, like, what fighters are getting now is also significantly more than what they used to get, except for, like, the top guys. It's probably gross how much they were underpaid, And, like, a lot of these guys in UFC, like, they're all going for knockouts on Tuesday nights because they get a $50,000 bonus from Dana White. And it's just like, you're making this something that is like they're all chasing money regardless, like, but it's just one of those things where, like, just I'm sure that there'd be, in boxing, that could be it. There could be a fucking talent gap right now, because is it worth taking a chance, getting yourself fucked up for, however much money you're going to make? Or, if it was a steady, you're going to make $100,000 if you fight Terrance Crawford, I'm sure more people would step up instead of just being like, oh, well, you might make this if, like, this happens and these sell. And, like, it's a lot of ifs in boxing. and there's a lot of damage that you get from boxing. You know,
Yeah.
the damage is permanent, and then the pay is like, well, you know, if it sells, if this happens, you'll get this much, and it's like, okay, well then now I have to do work on top of that when I should be training to fight. You know.
And yeah, no, look, these guys are really trying to. I mean, first of all, boxers get paid well regardless. I mean, look at my pro debut, or what was supposed to be my pro debut before the event got canceled. I signed the contract. I was going to get paid $600 for a 4-round fight.
Yeah.
And for me, the way that I was thinking was like, fuck, they're going to put me in there with some tomato can and I'm going to knock them out in fucking 1 minute. So I'm going to get $600 for 1 minute's worth of fuck. Yeah, it's great. So for even me, I was like, good. By my 10th fight, I'll be getting paid $6,000 for like an 8-round fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like,
is it usually a thing? Like 4-round fights are your first professional fight?
Yeah, usually. And like, I mean, you could push for like when Lomachenko came out, like because his amateur record was he had such a name. He came out, he was fighting 10-round fight. I think he fought a 10-round fight his first fight. But usually it's that way. It goes 4, 8, 10, and then 12. There's 6-round fights too, but you don't see them as much. I don't think. But yeah, they all get paid pretty well, but you're trying to get to that point where some of the really big names get, where you want that contract. Okay, I got a 5-fight contract for X amount of dollars. So then you're guaranteed that money, no matter how the fight does, like at the gate or on pay-per-view or whatever. You're getting, that's what they're trying to get to. Like any athlete, right? Like you play to get that big contract, right? Obviously, the difference in boxing or fighting in any discipline is, that risk. It's like, yeah, I'm risking myself now because I want to get to the point where I get that contract where the money is guaranteed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And they fucking deserve it, man. They deserve it, man.
Yeah, and like I said, I think they just need to figure it out, or be it's also sucks that boxing can be a shady business depending on like who's there and who the promoters are. And, you get the situations like, again, they might be not every day, but like the Mike Tyson, where it's just like you got someone you think you trust and they just fucking take your money and like that.
Yeah.
Like, that stuff's, you gotta have people you trust, but then there's the pay just needs to be better. And
the pros and cons, right? Like pros of boxing, you get paid way more money, on a fight to fight basis. Cons are that there isn't like one organization running things. So you could have like individual promoters who are just scumbags.
Yep.
And no one's like, they're not abiding by any sort of rules overall. Yeah. And where UFC has that, there's an organization watching over, like the organization is the promoter.
Yeah.
But and again, like you were talking about, like the Tuesday nights guys are going for knockouts. They want to get that bonus. This is a great business tactic.
Yeah.
For the business. What does it do for the fighter in the long run, though?
Yeah.
And that's the fucked up part, right? So like to your point, like you were saying, like boxing, if they had things like that like marketed like on a daily basis and was in people's faces more to build up these fighters, it'd be great. But in boxing, it's like, well, we already generate all this money. All the money may be lopsided because it's going to a few people rather than everyone. But
like I said, it's like with the UFC, with these like contender series and these what used to be the Ultimate Fighting Championship, where they'd like bring people on and they would have them fight for like a spot on the UFC roster. But like, this is more than just like a fight. Like you're able to see people fight at an early stage in their career. It's exciting. It's like, I think there are only 3 rounds, and like, you're going to see, it's building up this guy, he had a knockout in Dana White's Contender Series. I remember watching that, like he's about to fight that. Like, it's just like, in boxing, unless you're someone who is associated with someone, or like you get yourself in a position, like it's hard to know somebody until like they're on that, like, and again, unless you're like an avid fan, it's really hard to get a hold of somebody and watch somebody unless you're made aware of them in other situations. But it's not like, UFC like hands it to you sometimes. It's like, this guy's really good and you can watch him on this coming up, and like he's supposed to be really good and it's on live TV or you can watch it there. Where I was like, I'm sure people knew who Floyd was coming up, but like I'm sure he wasn't, people weren't tuning into his fights in the first 5 years of his career. Maybe they were. I don't know exactly. But
Well, they were. You got to remember, it was different back then. Like again, he went pro in fucking '96. Like I remember, I
okay.
watched this, but yeah, I mean, I watched his career. You remember, boxing was like UFC wasn't a thing back then.
Yeah.
So what boxing was the thing, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
So yeah, like people knew, like when Floyd Mayweather came out, like people were excited, like, oh, Mayweather, this kid from the Olympics, this great amateur record, son of fucking Floyd, nephew of Roger. Like, I mean, people knew it was different back then.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, then yeah. No,
now you got to get. It's either you have that amateur record and fought in the Olympics, and you have that going in, or you're a guy like Wilder who started boxing later in his career, and you're just like, I'm knocking people out. He has zero boxing skills, but casual fans, they want to see people get knocked out. And what was that worth to Deontay Wilder? Well, it was worth a fucking lie. He's, made tens of millions of fucking dollars, not knowing how to box in boxing. So again, pros and cons of boxing. Like you can make a ton of money, but you could also get fucked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep. All right, let's talk about Kaity Taylor.
Yes, Kaity Taylor. So I know last week we talked a little bit about Devin Haney, I think, right? Last week we were talking about Devin Haney and how he just doesn't have what it takes to be competitive in a fight with like Tank or T.O. because of his lack of power.
Yeah.
I think him and Kaity Taylor are around the same weight. And I would be willing to bet a lot of money that Kaity Taylor would take him a full 12 rounds and maybe win a decision with Devin Haney.
Wow.
That's how fucking good Kaity Taylor is. Listen, I don't know where they pulled this chick, Miriam Gutierrez, for. She was tough. She was like, it was visible how much bigger she was than Kaity Taylor naturally. Taylor did put her down once on a beautiful counter right hand. But she was tough. She deserves a lot of credit for getting in there with who, many consider to be the best female boxer in the world. But I mean, Kaity Taylor is she's got lightning fast hands, moves her feet so well. Get ring IQ, her choice of combinations, the way she works levels, upstairs, downstairs, creates angles. Some of her little tactics that she uses, she does she pulls guard like Lomachenko does. She'll jab past the head and rip the guard down. Mm-hmm. I also know she does this other thing where she'll get in, put her chest or her shoulder in her opponent's chest, and she was using that lead elbow to elbow the chick's guard out of the way and throw an uppercut. Just savvy, veteran, she is just amazing in every way when it comes to boxing. And she's Irish, so she that automatically puts her above a lot of people.
I'm watching these highlights as you talk.
Yeah, she is fucking just amazing, dude. I mean, I think honestly, there are a handful of dudes at her weight that if you put her in the ring with her, she'd fuck them up. She is fucking good, man.
Yeah, she's
fat. She is really fucking good. I'm just I'm blown away at how much better she looks than her competition. She's so fucking good. So good. But the fight was just a lot of Kaity Taylor going in, throwing 10 punch combinations and getting out before she can get touched. Mm. A lot of she throws a double left hook, which is one of my favorite combinations, right? The way that I like to throw it, I like to get on the inside, throw the left hook to the body, left hook to the head in quick succession, right? She does that a lot, but she does it. She's got 1-2 where she throws it a lot. She'll throw a double left hook to the head. So she'll get in there, throw some uppercuts, some straights, some jabs, just a real long combination, and then end with that double left hook to the head, bah, bah, in quick. It's just beautiful to watch. So there was a lot of that, a lot of her getting in on the inside. And again, like I said, Gutierrez was bigger. It was clear. But Taylor just read the distance well, was able to get in on the inside whenever the fuck she wanted to, land a bunch of shots and get out of there before she was ever touched. It was just a lot of that for the entire fight. like I said, she put her down once. I think like in the fifth,
It was a third round, I think.
third round. Okay, yeah. With a beautiful counter right at the end of the round. Yeah, so it was just a beautiful, beautiful fight by Kaity Taylor. She just boxed the shit out of the chick for the entire fight. Like
seems to be a common theme in boxing. There's one standout fighter who is just head and heels above everybody else, and no one wants to fight her.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's that just goes to show you, man. Like, you could have power and athleticism and all that, but it's the boxing IQ and the timing, the footwork, all the basics, the fundamentals of fighting. If you're really fucking good at that, it's really hard to beat you. You know what I mean? And that ring IQ goes a long fucking way, man. Long way. Like you get all the strength and athleticism in the world, but you don't know how to use it. It really doesn't matter when you come up against someone like that.
Yeah.
And I know, so like some of the other big names that actually they're talking about making a fight between Kaity Taylor and Cyborg.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And Kaity Taylor, too, listen, she was like, again, because she's Irish, she was like, someone asked her, was like, would that be in the ring or the octagon? She's like, well, I'd hope it'd be in the ring for my sake, but if it's in the octagon, whatever, man, let's just make the fight. And that's savage, dude. She's just savage. Obviously, we talked about this before too. Like, I don't think it's a good idea for anyone to cross over with only a few months. But they're talking about either way, just because Kaity Taylor is in a position now, again, like Crawford, like Canelo, where she's done so much damage that it's really hard to get her a fight that matters.
Yeah.
Although she's talking about like the dream fight is to get her and Clarissa Shields, who is the other, fighter that is considered to be the top female fighter. But I think she's a little bit bigger than Kaity Taylor. So again, I think it would be hard that they'd have to fight at a catchweight, I think. But she said that she wants that. Kaity Taylor said numerous times that she wants that fight. I think it'd be really great because Clarissa Shields is really, really good too. I think Clarissa Shields is another one that, like, she fought some dudes at her weight, she'd beat the shit out of them. She's that good. But she's more of a basically go forward and like use her power. Then Kaity Taylor's a little more slick boxer. But yeah, man, I think people that are not watching Kaity Taylor are missing out. Like, it's a thing of beauty to watch her fight. It really is.
Yeah, I think when you start to find these types of fighters, and you start to find skill that is oftentimes out of its class, and especially as a girl. Like, that's the first thing is like, it's the same thing going on with basketball. And like, there's a certain skill level you need to be successful in your sport. And like, people blow off females because, they don't have, a lot of them don't have that personality, and they sports are mainly dominated by guys, and guys are very, poor thinkers in terms of
machismo.
They're like, oh, geez, a girl, she can't play.
Yeah.
Choked. Hold on.
Guys can't even get sentences out because they was choking on their own fucking words.
Exactly. And like, when you're looking at that stuff, there's people like Kaity Taylor who are just good and they're just skilled. And exactly like people like in the NBA, like Maya Moore and Candace Parker. And there's people now who are just they're filthy and they're just good athletes and they're just good players. But people just don't tune into them because for whatever reason, like, again, I think that, it could fall into hands of the promoter. Like, she needs to be put out there more. Is she American? Or is she from America or is she from Ireland?
She's Irish. And her promoter is Eddie Hearn.
Okay. So then that, that should be something that she needs to get out there more. She needs to be talked about more. And like, she needs to be, whether that's her fault or somebody else's, but like, it just needs to be a push because there's people like this that are just unreal athletes. They're just unreal fighters. And like,
And I think as far as female fighters go, though, that she is at the top of like people watch her. Like the
Yeah.
people that do watch.
Well, like I said, there was 2 million people that watched her. So like,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
think,
So I think she's right. She's right at the top. But yeah. More. She should be up there with any of the guys that bring in these viewers. I
I
mean,
think
she's
that,
that fucking good.
and I think what happens too sometimes is that they're usually, and this is, I guess, in my observations, there's usually a bigger talent gap within women, from like top to bottom, just because of biological differences. And like usually, when you look at like an NBA team from top to bottom, there's usually, like there is usually not that much of a talent difference from like, 5 to 12 of like
Yeah.
the roster. 1 to 5 is usually like best player, second best player, in female sports, it seems to just be like, and I don't know if it's just because, like I said, there's just like biological differences and things like that, but it seems that the talent gap is a little bit bigger. So it's harder for someone like Katie Taylor to really um, find talent or find people to fight. Like, and she's probably even worse than like a Canelo, because Canelo, realistically, like he's on another level. But like, I'm sure that like if he wanted to, he could fight somebody. Like there's other people that like physically could impose on him. But like as someone like Katie Taylor, with the skill she has and like just having power and having speed, it's like you're not going to find a lot of um, women in the sport who have all that,
Yeah.
And like I could be wrong, like I could be off my rocker here, but like I just feel like when I've watched sports for females, it's like the best player is the best player, and it's like by a country mile, because like there's not really anybody, it's just not that type of, like it's just different from the bottom to the top, and the talent level is just, there's just a bigger gap.
Yeah. Honestly, I think it's less to do with the fact that they're women and more to do with the fact that female sports are still kind of new.
Yeah, and exactly. And
Like, especially in this country, like women have only had the right to vote for a little over 100 years. You know what I mean? So like, and female sports being in the public eye is like just in like the last like couple decades, really.
Yeah.
So like, it's still the idea of getting a bunch of little girls to grow up and want to be athletic and be really good at being an athlete instead of being in a dress and looking pretty is sort of a new thing.
Yeah.
So I think like the flood of male athletes and like having guys from top to bottom being good athletes, because that's what we expect of men. Oh, go do sports. And like, so their whole lives they built up to it. And like women, it's a little newer. So we don't have as many women from a young age, wanting to grow into that role of being a supreme athlete.
Yep.
And so I think having like a Katie Taylor and a Clarissa Shields and like a Maya Moore and like these female athletes now as role models for girls now, that like in the next 20 years it'll be a lot more even. You know what I mean? From top to bottom.
It's just like there's just like, because there's just girls who are just, there's females who have the skill level and could play, like you said, these guys could probably beat fucking men in their division at the same weight. And like, that there's less seen of that in females as there's going to be in men, and there's going to be, just because, like I said, it's more common for a guy, guys to be like, yeah, I could be a fighter if I wanted to, it's a common thought. With females, it's like, yeah, I could, but like, I don't know, like I've never seen anybody do it. There's this stigmatism that goes around with being a female fighter, being a brute or being like this, this thought that if you work out any more than just like Pilates, you're going to get jacked and you're going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And you're just like, that's not, that's not true. So like that, once that stigma gets erased, and I think it's starting to, you're going to start seeing more Katie Taylors and start seeing,
and look at, there are some good looking female fighters. Again, like, I don't want to sound like
no, I got you, but they're
chauvinistic like dick. But there are like look at even in boxing, the shit, what fight was it? Oh, it's Michaela Meyer
Yeah,
fought on the
she's good
undercard
too.
of it. Anyway, I happen to think she's a really good looking chick. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
she's badass, man. You know what I mean? So like, I don't. Yeah, it's kind of fucked up that yeah there is this fucking stigma that like, oh, if you fight you're just a brute.
yeah,
There has to be one or the other, and it's like it doesn't have to be. You know what
yeah,
I mean? You could be really awesome at something that is just dirty and
yeah,
still you know, be confident enough to go out and fucking make yourself look good to, I don't know why that would matter, like anyway, but
no, it does. It
it
does.
does. I mean, we live in America, like it
Yeah,
does. Like it's just the reality of it.
yeah,
But yeah, I don't think it has to be one or the other. I think you can be fucking badass and beat the shit out of people and still look good while you're doing it. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. And like I said, it's just that it's just one of those things where it's going to come, and I think its time is coming because you are seeing people like Katie Taylor, and you did see people like Ronda Rousey, and you're seeing people like Shevchenko and Michaela. What was her last name? Michaela
Mayor.
Mayer. And they're starting to come up in basketball. It's like the women players are good. They have skill. Like they're not. Like there's just it's those things that are starting to come. It's opening that door is gonna start to introduce talent, and that's what always happens. It just was earlier for guys. So like I said, there's a less of a talent gap, and it's when you're in the business of basketball, for example, like I said, 1 through 5, you're not really going to see like it's not there's going to be a clear difference from 1 to 2 to 3 and then 5, and then from 5 to 12 it's more about like people who know their role, people who are really good at their role and do really well, but the talent gap isn't as big as you would see from like a number 1 in female sports to a number 12 in female sports.
Yeah.
It's going to start getting fixed, and it has to, because that's how the world works.
Yeah.
There's just not else much to say about it, but these people they're good fighters, and I guess to summarize that, don't just discount female fighters or sports players just because they're female, because they have.
To summarize it, go fucking pay attention to Katie Taylor.
And even so, I would even say, yeah, they're probably even more impressive because they have to rely on technique that much more. Because they don't have, and that's, I guess that kind of cleared it up in my head too as I'm explaining. Like they don't have the physical capacity of men sometimes. Like just biologically, they don't have it.
Right.
So you don't see women with 60-inch verticals or like these crazy physical feats where like you don't have to be good in the NBA. You could be Zion. You could be 280 and jump out of the fucking gym and be a first pick overall. For a woman, you have to be technically sound. You have to have some qualities that like are, foundationally, you have to be a little bit better than the average male. And like this stuff is where it.
And the dedication.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's like sometimes men, actually not sometimes, oftentimes men are so physically gifted that they don't do the shit required to stay good, to be great. Right. And that's a thing that is missing sometimes. Like you're like, oh, this is God-given, man. I'm just fucking Taylor. I don't need to do shit. And then you fucking suck because you come up against someone who actually gives a fuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's gonna start coming. And so to summarize, women are just as good, if not more impressive, for their sporting feats than the average male.
This is a woke episode.
All right, so we got Connor Ben.
No, wait. And I'm not being sarcastic. We are woke though, for real.
We're what?
We are woke for real. That's not sarcasm.
Oh yeah. It's the woke cast.
Had to put that out there.
Yeah. So Connor Ben, Sebastian Flamella, you said, right?
Yes.
So that's an upcoming fight this weekend.
Yes. Like the only one like on the schedule that's of any importance.
Yeah, and then the UFC fights, like we said, this weekend. We got Figueiredo, Maya Shevchenko, Mike Perry, Tim Means. Next couple weeks, we got some fights, though.
Yes.
Next week? What's the weekend? I know it's the 18th. So next weekend, I think it's Tyson.
Yep, Tyson, Roy Jones, and Daniel Jacobs is fighting Gabe Rosado.
Oh, and we can add this in. And the legendary Jake Paul versus Nate Robinson.
Oh, yeah.
Jake had some choice words for YouTube fighters getting big fights.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, you know what? Yeah, let me take a moment before we get into the upcoming fights this week. So I just need to get it off my chest. Like I get it off my chest every chance I get, but I'm gonna do it here. The fact that these social media influencers can just like jump in to boxing and say, yeah, you know what, I want to try it out. And not only do they have the opportunity to just try it out to be a professional fucking fighter, but they're getting like big money fights. Like they're getting on a stage that other guys work their fucking asses off to get to, and some don't ever get the opportunity to do that. Like there are kids out there in the gym right now that go to the gym and are in the gym as much as they can be because it's the only place they got to go to stay out of trouble or to get their head right. Or just because they love fucking boxing. They love it more than anything. So they're in the gym all the fucking time. Mm-hmm. And those guys, a lot of those guys will never get that big money fight for many reasons. There are a ton of, I mean, sometimes life just happens, right? And you got a guy like this fucking idiot, Jake Paul, and his fucking idiot brother, and this fucking shitty, like he was shitty in basketball, fucking Nate Robinson. And the other, I don't know, who's the English dude that the other Paul brother, I don't even know who the fuck he is.
KSI.
KSI. Idiot. They're all trash. All right. You keep KSI seeing these videos like people fucking put up like, oh, look at Jake Paul actually looks good. And that's a bunch of people that don't know a fucking thing. Like Uncle Roger has always said, most people don't know shit about boxing. And that is so true. Because there are people out there like all over YouTube, like, oh, Jake Paul looks good. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Dude is trash. But so
I wish, wait, if you have a chance, go on YouTube and type in Jake Paul versus Gibby, I think the dude's name was. And like, I just want you to watch the embarrassment of the other guy he was fighting and like how bad he was. This dude's like another YouTuber that he fought.
What's his name?
Gibby. His name is like Gibby? Yeah, Gibby.
Okay.
And it was Jake Paul versus Kid Gibby, and like his it's just like when you see that type of competition between two people like that, you're just like, all right, like
it's a fucking joke, man. It's a joke. So there has been talk of Willie Monroe being in line to be one of these upcoming fights for Canelo. He was actually in line to be Canelo's next fight, which he didn't get. Canelo's fighting Callum Smith in December. But Willie Monroe's name is still on there to be one of Canelo's next few opponents. And I bring this up because Willie Monroe is a guy that I know personally. I sparred Willie. I know where he's from. I know the type of situation he comes from. For one, his family, he comes from a family of boxers. It's in his blood. He's a really great boxer. And for him to knowing where he comes from and how much work he's put in and the things that went wrong like early in his career, because now I wasn't that close to the situation, but I know he probably should have went pro a little earlier. He had a really, really good amateur career. He had a pretty big name. He probably should have went pro like when he was like 19, 20 years old. But for a bunch of other reasons, again, which I'm not totally familiar with, he didn't end up going pro until I think he was 25 or 6 or something. But he kept at it. He made a lot of changes in trainers, in gyms, in locale. Like he moved to a few different cities to try to make it work, right? To show his dedication to boxing, to the craft. And look, he put himself in a position where, again, he got to fight Triple G, got paid handsomely to get in there and like, look at Triple G knocked him the fuck around. But hey, man, he's all that dedication. He went in there and got a big payday, then got a big payday against Billy Joe Saunders, right? And now I think he opened up his own gym in Tampa Bay, which again, he has been working knowing where he's come from, putting all the fucking work he has to get to that point and to be in line to get a really big payday against Canelo is well fucking deserved. This dude's put his fucking heart, his sweat, his blood, everything into fucking boxing and has gotten to this point. He fucking deserves it. He deserves to be on a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Not fucking Jake Paul and the rest of these fucking scumbags who just think like, oh, I'm going to try out boxing, right? Because they were in there with a real fucking boxer. Because first of all, boxing is not for the fucking faint of heart, all right? It's not for someone that's in there to try it out. It's for people that have real fucking anger, come from real fucking terrible places. And boxing is a place where it's like, I can get this shit out. I have a talent for beating the fuck out of people. Because, I mean, make no mistake, that's what this is. Boxing is not something that you play. It's not a sport that we're like, oh, I'm going to go in there and fucking try it out, man, and practice really hard and be awesome. That's not what it is, man. You need to have a certain mentality going into the shit. You have to want to hurt people, and you have to be okay with getting hurt.
Yep.
This is not some shit that you just fucking jump into. Like some YouTuber, like, oh, I made some money. Now I'm going to do this because I have influence. And the fact that Shannon Briggs is coaching this fucking idiot and he's talking about like, oh, he could be a champion. Like Shannon Briggs is a fucking cunt for doing that. He's a piece of, first of all, Shannon Briggs never did anything in boxing either. For me, it seems like he's just, oh, this is just a way for him to get some money, which good for him, I guess.
Probably getting paid.
Yeah, good for him, I guess. But I mean, it's a disrespectful to fucking boxing and to every person like Willie Monroe who fucking has put everything they have into boxing and given back to boxing and made it the focal point of their life, and they're fully dedicated to it. For this piece of shit who has no fucking talent, Jake Paul and his fucking idiot brother and all these other idiots who have no business being they have no business being anywhere around a pair of fucking boxing gloves. Like, they should not even be allowed to be in the section in Dick's where they sell boxing gloves. That's how fucking terrible they are. All right. So, yeah, people like Willie Monroe deserve it to be in the position that this guy, Jake Paul, and these other idiots are in. They do not deserve to be on an undercard of, I don't give a fucking Mike Tyson and Roy Jones were fucking 70 years old. All right. They do not deserve to be in the same building as these guys when it comes to boxing. It's fucking atrocious. All right. It's a tragedy, and it should be fucking fixed. And I don't want to hear all this shit about, like, a lot of people out there like, oh, they're bringing new fans to boxing. Boxing doesn't need fans. It's just been around for fucking forever, since the dawn of man. We don't need new fans. All right. Like, I just put a post on my Instagram that in 688 BC was the first time that fucking boxing was added to the Olympics, because the Olympics were not just Olympic games. They were actually preparation for war. Yeah. All right. 688 BC is the first time that they fucking were part of Olympic games. We don't need new fans that are coming from YouTube. Don't fucking need it. You know, go fuck off. Go watch these idiots fight in the backyard. We don't fucking need it. All right. So these social media influencers and anyone else who just has some regular job and just decides to jump into boxing or kickboxing, MMA, I don't give a fuck what it is. Any discipline of fighting where someone has dedicated their life to it, and the physical toll that it takes on you, that people are, again, they're dedicating their life to it. For you to just walk in and think you do this shit, fuck off. All right. I hope they all get fucking hurt seriously. Okay. I hope that Nate Robinson and this fucking idiot Jake Paul knock each other out and give each other brain damage and they fucking die. All right. And that's let me stop there.
Well, I agree. I think it's just
them to die too?
them having the influence they have is not helpful to the situation, because they have followers and people who will follow them no matter what. So it's more of them just leveraging their social media profiles and what they have built to do something. But I mean, it comes to a point where, they can talk all they want, but when they come up to somebody who's an actual legit talent and fighter, then the talking goes away, because, he's saying he could be champion, he could do this, he could do that, but he's fighting people who have, like I said, I'd love to see your live reaction to this Gibby fight that he fought. Like, this kid is just like, he's running around like this, like he's going like this when he's getting in front of him, like with his hands. And it's like, it's like when you see like that, it's easy to say, oh yeah, I want to go fight Connor, I want to go fight this. And it's like, good luck, dude. But like, those aren't like, the other thing is like, these are YouTubers. They're YouTubers for a reason. They're not out there to kill somebody. Like a dude like Connor, a dude like Canelo, a dude like Triple G, like these dudes are literally out there to rip your head off.
This is not a fucking game. This is not a game.
So like, when they're out there, and they're going through the motions, like they're going through the motions against people that have no business being out there. And like when they go through the motions like that against someone who's they've been there for 20 years, and like you said, like a Willie Monroe Jr., like a and he's calling, and he's just doing it for the hype. And like I promise you, he will get something. He will get one of these guys to bite because they know how much money is going to be involved with it, and he'll get either a fading top fighter from UFC or a fading top fighter from boxing, and they'll fight him, and like he'll probably lose, but it's going to be one of those things where all it takes is one of those paychecks, and I don't know how they're going to handle this, but like he's got enough money where he can make it work. Unfortunately, but it's just going to take that one. He can call out everybody he wants until it's actually time to like fight, and then it's just going to be one of those things where he's just going to get shut up, and then this whole thing will be over, hopefully, or it'll just be condensed to YouTubers fighting each other. Like if the YouTubers want to fight each other, that's fine, but like when they start calling out, the professionals and people who are
listen, if they want to fight each other, yeah, that's fine on YouTube. I don't want to see it on the undercard of actual fighters.
Yeah.
And two fighters who, by the way, are two of the best
ever
that have ever done it.
Yeah.
You don't belong there. All right, fuck off.
Yeah.
Hope these guys literally punch each other's fucking heads out their shoulders into the fucking audience.
All right,
scumbag.
I got a class to do at 4:30, and it's a different time for you, but it's 4:20 for me. So we got to call it here. Do you want to give a prediction for the Conor Ben fight?
Yeah, I'll give a quick prediction. I think Conor Ben is going to knock this guy out. The dude Formella is like complete fucking trash. So no disrespect.
All right, so we got Figueiredo by, I'm going to say unanimous decision. We got Shevchenko, who I think is going to knock Maya out, or unanimous decision. And then we got Conor Ben. Then next week, we're going to be talking about Mike Tyson. We got Tyson versus Roy Jones. I think we got a couple UFC fights next weekend.
Also, Daniel Jacobs.
Gabe
Rosado.
Yep. And then, we got Curtis Blades versus Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis is always a fun guy to talk about.
Yeah.
Talk about him.
Derek Lewis.
He's a funny dude. But yeah, so thank you guys for tuning in. If you listen this far, fuck Jake Paul. Fuck YouTube fighters. Enjoy the fights this weekend. If you guys have predictions or anything, let us know, or let us know what you're thinking, or you have any feedback on the reviews, or talking about Kaity Taylor or anything like that, or quote unquote woke conversation about female sports. Let us know. Be more than happy to have a back and forth with you. Until next time, peace.